Hello, Jessica. uh, my name my name is Josh Reff, or Joshua Reff, or Joshua Lord Joshua Aaron Reff the Fourth, or the 12th, whichever number I want to give myself, how extravagant I feel at the time. And so for your viewers, I'm sure they'll have seen a little bit of a link, but I am a creator of these gigantic, magical, and amazing tuning forks. Let me have a hammer to demonstrate. Not sure how it will come through over there.
It sounds lovely.
So I've been making these, and these little guys. Well, they're not little. They're about 7.77 inches in diameter.
Wow.
About 3.5 years, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And they were my introduction into the sound healing world. So when I was first getting interested in sound healing, I almost immediately began making my own instruments. So I had a tiny pair of tuning forks, and they're actually, I'm not going to get them, but they're somewhere covered in dust in the corner because I don't take them out anymore. I had them for a few months. And when they started,
Size does matter.
it does. It does. I mean, at least with tuning forks. At least with tuning forks. Yeah. But yeah.
So how long ago did you get started making the tuning forks?
About 3.5 years ago.
3.5.
It was sometime midsummer, around July of 2017, I think.
And how did that come about?
So it came about with the baby forks, or the normal size, however, the little forks that everyone is so accustomed with. I do work with some other energetic modalities through brainwave entrainment, and it's like guided meditation through light stimulation. And I had been gifted enough money from a client after a session to go into a metaphysical shop and buy a set of tuning forks, just because it was the exact amount that I needed to buy. It was a solar harmonic set from Biosonics, and yeah, the Biosonics is great. They're probably the only tuning forks that I really like his methodology, and he's more science based and very much so. Was he I think it's he had training in neurology, I think, or
Yeah, he's a naturopathic doctor and a PhD. I actually just became aware of John, I believe it's pronounced Bolu. I'm reading a book now by Eileen McCusick. It's called Tuning the Human Biofield.
Yeah, I haven't read that one yet, but I've been picking through John's book because
Okay.
like the tuning style that I actually gravitated towards with my work is what he was doing already. So when I got his book and started going through some of his books on how he tunes things and how he treats things, and it's all Pythagorean based, and I'm just like, okay, that's kind of how I was approaching this, so I should read into more of what he was doing.
Yeah.
But let's sort of back to the story of how they came to be. So someone gifted me enough money to buy my first set of them, and I was just absolutely falling in love with them. And I was taking them into ayahuasca ceremonies. Like it was a handful of ceremonies where it fully started to develop. But I'd take two of them together while I was sitting in the medicine and sitting up, which is really difficult to do in a lot of occasions. And I'd tap them together, and when I'd pull them apart, it'd be just a holographic globe of the earth in between the tuning forks, and I would navigate around it, and I could zoom in and I could zoom out, and it was just full, for me, because I played video games all my life, it felt like a video game. It's like in VR, like, oh, this is like in those cutscenes when they're flying through space and they need to find the planet. It just opens it up, finds where I need to go, and I kept projecting to places. So places that I had been, I would be able to just walk around as if I was there again, or places that I hadn't been. So I'd end up in, let's say, New York City was a constant theme because I had never been there, and I'd have had a friend there. And so I'd hit the tuning forks together, then I'd pull them open and find New York and just sort of go into Central Park. And there I would see this, pyramid of light, which was, an art project. I was working on an art installation that involved some brainwave entrainment technology. So pyramidal meditative structure that people sit around and stare into with their eyes closed, and creates trance states, is something I've been working on for a while, and it kind of fell to the back burner once I started making my tuning forks naturally. But but so I would see myself in Central Park, and I'd be there with a friend talking about this project that I was attempting to build. And I'd be talking to myself in my head, like, well, I would be talking to ayahuasca, the spirit, like in my head, like, hey, if I'm in New York, or like if I'm seeing myself in New York City, like, how am I going to get there? I'm completely broke. The guy, like, I'm completely broke. I don't know how I'm going to be there, but this is happening. This is my future.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, don't worry. Like, your friend, Jeff, the guy I was talking to, she's like, don't worry. Jeff will buy you a ticket out there and you'll go visit him. And I'm like, yeah, bullshit. He's being a cheaper Jew than I am. There's no way that he's going to buy me a ticket there. And she's like, yeah, he will. And I just kept arguing back and forth as one does while sitting like in a ceremony space. She's like, okay. And so like after that ceremony happened, I ended up getting a phone call from my friend Jeff, and he's like, hey, I'm going to fly you out to New York City for my birthday.
Of course.
Like, yeah, like it just sort of happened like that. I go to New York City, take him to the spot where I had the vision of me talking to him, had the same conversation with him in the same spot where I led him to, like, oh yeah, this is exactly where we were. We were near these trees next to this rock, and it's just complete deja vu. And so then, of course, after seeing him, I go home and I go to do another ceremony. I dragged my mom to a ceremony with me, which was pretty funny. But
How did she do in the ceremony?
First night she loved it. Second night it was
Not so much.
very, very intense for her. But yeah, so the same thing would be happening. I'd have the tuning forks, I'd hit them together, and I was convinced I was doing magic. I was just opening it up, flying around the cosmos, and just
you were.
Yeah, I certainly was. And there's just like one instance where I remember having one of the tuning forks and I was holding it to my chest, and I could feel it resonating with the Icaros that the shaman was singing. So she would be singing and the thing would just light up, and I'd be pointing it around the room. And when I pointed at her, it would vibrate more. And it was just so many beautiful things were happening. And, I go back to New York City, I see this pyramid of light, but this time there were these big ornate tuning forks floating around it. And I just received a message, and she said to me, like, you need to make your own tuning forks and take them with you for this project and try to sell them and see what happens. And I just said, okay, I have no idea how I'm going to do that, but that sounds like a great idea. Sure, why not? And so while I was, driving home from the ceremony, just completely on another planet still, my mom's just like kind of passed out in the car. And I'm just like, yeah, I make tuning forks. How am I going to do that? And so I get a phone call from a gentleman I had just met, and I probably met him a few weeks beforehand. My brother met him through the cannabis industry, and he had a small company prototyping rocket parts for the University of Washington. So he had an aerospace fabrication company. Like, I assume half of Washington is just aerospace fabrication companies with Boeing and everything like that. Yeah,
Pretty much.
Boeing, yeah. So like naturally he had one. So he's like, hey, I really need some help. Everyone I'm trying to hire is pretty dumb, and when can you come in? And I mean, he said it a little bit more crass because he's a very intense individual. And I just, I was telling him what was up. I'm like, I'm driving home from the ceremony right now. Everything's amazing. I can come in maybe Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday. And so a few days later, I show up at his shop. And of course I have no background in machining, which is the funniest part. Like,
what was your background before you had all these visions and had the message come to go do this?
My background was mostly in cannabis, music, and psychology. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology because when I was 17, a mushroom trip convinced me to go to school for psychology.
Nice.
As it does. So I went to school for that with the hopes of being able to get a career later in life with a master's degree doing psychedelic research and therapies, which is extremely relevant now. But about 10 years ago, when I would approach this with professors, they're like, that's never going to happen. Don't even fathom that. Just pay attention to this PowerPoint and don't be original.
And look where we're at now.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm applying for grad schools right now, so I could go do that and incorporate what I'm doing with the tuning forks. So it
That's
seems like
amazing.
a good time to go back into there. But yeah, so that was my background. I was an English teacher in Thailand for a little bit. I didn't, scuba dive. I was a dive master, so I thought I was gonna be a scuba dive instructor at one point. I was trying to do that. I was all over the place, and everything I was doing just didn't really didn't really make
Yeah.
sense. I'd just be over it in about a year or two, which seems to be kind of how my brain is always operated. I'll get really intense into things, and it'll just be, a few months later, I'll just be like, all right, the dopamine is just drained in my brain. Okay.
I feel you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, so, I get there on a Wednesday and I'm still just not totally back into my body yet. I'm just still like in the ceremony. I show him the tuning forks and I'm like, can we make these? Like, since you have all these machines here. And he's just like, yeah, that's easy. And he whips up a model for a little tiny one in about 20 minutes tops, whips up a model in 20 minutes, programs the machine to cut it out of just, he had all the metal in the shop already waiting to go for the little ones. And we made it, we looked at it, and it was a little bit dinky. It was tiny.
Hmm.
It was about that long. It was really thin, and we hit it, it barely do anything. We're just like, this doesn't feel right. Like, I was like, I know I need to be making these, but we're probably gonna have to do better than this. And then he's like, well, we could just make really, really huge ones because this machine is meant for making really, really big objects. I mean, he's prototyping rocket nozzles for
Yeah.
like little whatever he was doing. He was doing so much there, but so we scaled the model up. We figured out some math. By we, I mean him. I found I found him the formula. I found him the formula for tuning fork frequencies on
Hmm.
Wikipedia, and he made a completely interactive Excel sheet with the material that would need to be plugged in, with the size and the dimensions of the tuning fork, and it just spit out the frequency the length that we needed to cut it to make it to that frequency.
Wow.
And he made that within an hour while the machine is cutting out this giant tuning fork in the background. So we cut it out to the right size, and pretty much like 4 or 5 hours after me getting into this shop and signing some contracts, like, yes, I will be your servant here for however long you deem necessary. I'm holding one of the prototypes in my hand by the end of the day, and just
Wow.
like, just hit it once with a hammer and just completely blown away by it. I'm just like, wow, this is absolutely incredible. And it's just like the thought in my head was just like, oh, this is what you intended for me to make tuning forks. I see what you did there. Yes,
Hmm.
this is a great idea. And so, I pretty much just I looked on the internet to see if anyone had any sort of business making them, or if there's any tuning forks like this being made, and there was not. There was not a single person out there making tuning forks this sized, at least publicly. I'd seen some really grainy pictures that were very pixelated of a guy holding a tuning fork that was like 10 feet tall. But I mean, I've never been able to find that person again or even reference of them on the internet. So
Yeah.
they're
I've
not on the
never
internet.
seen it either until you connected with me on Instagram, and I was like, whoa, what is that? Oh,
Yeah.
also wanted to give you kudos to Sound Bath World posting your Bernie Sanders meme with the tuning forks on Instagram. That was so cool. I was
uh,
like, hey, I know that guy.
yeah, that meme needed to be created. It just had to be.
Totally.
I have so many pictures of me doing that pose with tuning forks that it just had to happen. Yeah, but
You
yeah,
should
so
send it to Bernie, like post it on his Instagram page or on his Facebook page and be like, here you go, Bernie.
I
Come check
should
it out.
send him a framed picture of it with a giant tuning fork. I'll send him a bee for
Yes.
Bernie. Yeah,
Yes, totally. Isn't
yeah.
that the newest one you have on your Instagram page? You had with your new camera, you did a video
Mhm.
of the vibration of the tuning fork. It was super cool.
Yeah. So that was actually one of the oldest forks I have on me,
Oh,
which is a bee. I have a
cool.
bunch, but I just am very bad at taking videos on a regular basis of what I have in stock or what I've
Hmm.
been working on. So I've got a pretty big variety of them. Well, at least I normally do, but the holidays completely like drained me of all of my all
Yeah.
of my stock. So I'm waiting on more to be made. I only have a couple of, what's on the couch behind me and the
Hmm.
ones that I was showing you earlier. I've maybe got
Yeah.
like 8 of them out of, I started with like 40 of them at the beginning of this year. Now I have 8, which I can't sell. I can only sell like 2 of them because these are now my personal collection. And
Yeah.
if I don't have anything to work with for myself or create content, I have nothing to do. So
Yeah.
I'm waiting for more.
Same with the singing bowls that I work with, right? You have special bowls. I mean, they're all special. I love them all. And then
Mhm.
there's certain ones you use for certain things, like right when you're like I found through this whole lockdown thing, right? You know, everybody's like going out and buying sound equipment and bringing it home and then trying to figure it out and trying to figure out what platform carries the sound the best. And then the lower tones that are more vibratory don't always carry through the microphone the best. Then you got to figure out, oh, you need a condenser mic. You can't just get any regular old mic to record or to play live, right? And Facebook Live doesn't really give you a really steady platform to be on. So then you realize, okay, well, Instagram, that works better, but not always. And then Zoom is awesome, and it still has some glitches too. What have you found in your recording, if you have done any recording, works best for you?
So let me grab my microphone just to show you really quick.
Okay.
So my microphone, it's attached to my camera right now.
Okay.
It's a stereo mic that I can just plug into plug it into my camera.
Oh, cool.
And I had this plugged into my phone as well, and it picks up really clear audio, and you can just set them on little tripods or, you know, on a camera like this, and it picks it up pretty clearly. And this was the video of the wobbly fork, or the wobble fork, however they're called, was the first video I shot with that camera, and it had some issues with hissing sounds, but I'm figuring that out right now. It isn't too hard of a fix, but I find those work very well because they're very sensitive. They're stereo, so they work well with what I'm doing, just because I can move things around and it tracks the headphones, kind of like ASMR. So any of the good videos that I have recorded with that audio is just great with headphones, because it's just full 360 sounds.
Yeah.
And then of course for like binaural effects or beat frequencies, it picks it up really well as well. So
Absolutely.
I haven't recorded as much as I probably should, which is one thing that I've been setting myself to a lot during the lockdown, is just preparing myself and gathering equipment so I can take more professional recordings of it. So new camera, new microphones, just because that's the one thing I have been lacking with all the content I have been creating, has been that. But somehow
do you use Audacity or another platform when you're recording, like to your computer?
So I use Audacity when I edit the recordings, just because it's free and really easy to do. When I'm making videos, since the microphone is plugged directly into the camera, it simplifies it all, since it's all ready there, and I just have to open up the video in any of the editing software that I have, and I can play with the levels from there. But in the past, I've used Audacity because I've done a bit of recording. I was a DJ for, like, I still am, but since I was 18 until now, and I'm 30, I think I'm 32. Yeah, wait, no, almost 32. So I've always used that for editing mixes and just fixing the levels on that, just because free and easy.
Yeah. I've been using it to record too, and I find that it records beautifully. I have an Audio Technica microphone for regular voice, and then I also just bought two new. I bought an ID414 interface with a couple of new microphones, and now I can't remember the brand. Well, I'm sure I'll remember it later, but they work really well because I've started to do the stereo recording with both of them on either side, and that seems to be working well with Zoom calls better now too.
Okay.
What communities are you working with right now as you are practicing and sharing your healing gifts with other people?
So currently, due to the situation in the world, my work externally with many communities has kind of just narrowed itself mostly to being isolated to social media, just because I don't think I've met more than like 3 or 4 people in person to show them what I'm doing or do sessions with them since this all has started.
Okay.
Which is a bit unfortunate. So before this, there was a lot of momentum picking up. I was doing a lot of sound baths. I was participating at a lot of festivals, doing installation work or workshops at the festivals, which was always a lot of fun.
What are some of the festivals that you were at?
So I did a lot of installation work at Burning Man this last year, and some like Base Coast up in Canada, some small local festivals out here, which I totally forgot the name of because it was the second year throwing it, and yeah, the best part about it was being able to run around with tuning forks. Uh,
Perfect.
yeah. So, and then there's some conferences that I've been to with the gentleman who makes the magical light device called the Ajna light that I have worked with. There's the Plant Spirit Medicine conference in Vancouver that I was attending, and I was helping him run a booth there. So he had his lights set up, and I was luring people over
With your tuning forks.
yeah,
How does the Ajna light work?
So it works. It's a two-part system. It's I'm trying to see if I have it in my room. I do. I'll show you. I'll show it to you.
We were talking about this the other day when we were on the phone, and I was doing my best to imagine it. And it just like I had the picture in my head of the VR eye mask thing that I worked with one time, and that was really cool. And it was the white light, so I imagined it was similar to that.
Yeah, very, very similar. So this is the lamp. So
okay.
The head of it, and it gets attached to a little tiny computer, and so it's just 5 LED lights, and they're programmable to just run through different algorithms for different states of consciousness. So there's presets for it. So let's say if you want to do a lot of delta heavy, like very deep meditative frequencies, you can put it to delta or create your own specialized sessions for people. And so this part attaches to a tripod down here, and usually it's like you lay under it with your head facing upward, or you can use it with groups of people, which I find to be very effective, because I just set this in front of maybe 20 people and turn up the brightness and have everyone laying down or sitting up in a meditative pose, and it works beautifully with groups. And so this
just flashes out into the atmosphere like a strobe light almost. Maybe. Yeah. Okay.
It's exactly like a big strobe light. It's just a very, very smart strobe light that it uses I guess the wavelength of the LEDs is supposed to be close to white light or sunlight as possible, so the brain will optimally pick it up. And
now where do you pick up one of those Ajna lights?
So from the developer of it, or through me, as I act as an ambassador to them. I think it should be ajnalight.com. Yeah.
Okay.
Ajnalight. Oh, that's backwards on my screen for some.
It's frontwards on my screen. It's okay.
Oh, weird. Yeah, ajnalight.com, and I've been working with those for about 5 years, and they've been very, very powerful. They're just are phenomenal tools. I've been very fortunate to be able to work with the developer since he was first, finished with his beta testing. I met him, when I was living in Thailand. I met him on the day I met him on my birthday. A girl named Sunshine introduced me to the light, which I think is pretty funny.
Of course.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah, this girl comes and starts talking to me about synchronicities.
I was just about to say all the synchronicities that lead you to your spot here now in this moment.
Yeah, exactly. And that in itself was a really funny story, because this girl I was a complete stranger to her, but knew who she was because of the internet. Like, I had seen her on some community boards for the town that I was living in Thailand. I'm like, oh, this person seems really cool. I would love to meet this person. And of course, I move out there, don't message anyone. I just start living my life and teaching English. And the day before my birthday, this girl sits down right next to me and starts talking to me about synchronicity. And I'm just like, you have no idea. And yeah, she explained to me what the light was, and of course at the time a very, very logic-based science mind is just like, well, that's it. You're telling me this light makes my brain produce DMT and will cause me to have a psychedelic state just with white lights? Sounds like please. Yeah, well, at first I was like, sounds like bullshit to me, but I would like to see this, because if it works, that's phenomenal, and you are very beautiful. Please lead me wherever in this beautiful. Like 25 at the time, of course.
I hear you.
Yeah. And it was incredible. Like the guy who develops these, he has a place called Lana Yoga, and it's he is essentially a yoga a yoga retreat center that's with a all organic farm, and he lives
Mhm.
essentially in like a glass pyramid that's filled with crystals and technology. He used to work for like Steve Jobs and a bunch of tech companies back in the early 90s, and
Mhm.
cashed out and became a Buddhist monk and is just living in Thailand being,
Amazing.
yeah, phenomenal individual. His name
Mm.
is his name is Guy Harriman, for anyone listening and wanting to Google. Yeah.
And do you spell his last name exactly as it sounds?
Harriman, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's it.
cool.
Yeah.
Google will bring up plenty of options, I'm sure.
Definitely. Some that are completely irrelevant, but they will be there.
So what other communities are you planning on reaching out to as we start to open up more? Because California just opened up again as of
Mhm.
yesterday, or
Oh,
no,
really?
as of today. Yes, as of today. So we're not like fully open, but personal services are open again. Although I haven't really shut down this whole time. For people who were
Mhm.
comfortable, they came to my office and we wore our masks and we did sessions because I feel that healing work is not necessarily it is a personal service, and it's not one that should be deemed non-essential, especially during these times. You know, Zoom is great, and there's nothing like being in person with someone and also feeling the vibration of that tuning fork on your body, on your
Mhm.
head, and being able to really connect in, or even sitting in front of the light, the Ajna light that you were just sharing with me, right? We
Mhm.
can't really experience it in the same way without that physical element to it.
Yeah.
So are you interested in working with more individuals moving forward besides your festival community that you work with before?
Yeah, individuals and groups, most certainly. I would like to start doing sound baths again once those are more of a thing. I typically will collaborate with a lot of people for sound baths just because I don't have a very large collection of anything except tuning forks and
Yeah.
a very big gong behind me. So I like to collaborate with people who have bowls and have more of a following, because people have
Yeah.
been doing this a lot longer than I have and have the communities and have the connections. So I'm just open to whomever will allow me to come and work my magic and just network. And I'm just always open for that sort of thing. But I would
Yeah,
also
you've
like
got
to.
almost 10,000 followers on Instagram. That's pretty good.
It's getting there. I think it's pretty good. It's some
It's
people have.
growing.
Yeah, yeah, it's growing a lot. Some people have reposted some of my videos, and I've gotten one of my videos has somewhere over 2 million collective views, which is
Wow.
just absurd for me to even think about.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's just the more I put into it, the more it just snowballs and builds and builds and builds. So I sort of envision it as the more tuning forks I put out into the world, I'm just creating this big vibrational quantum network that is just pulling and manifesting more good things out there. So the more I have,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, you're actually creating like the grid of the energy grid of the planet, right? The more we have singing bowls out there, like on different points on the grid, like in
Mhm.
Mount Shasta, there's the crystal room, which has
This is beautiful.
hundreds of bowls
Yeah.
to buy out there, and then people
Mhm.
go there from all over the world and play them and then purchase them and then bring them back to their parts of the world and play them there. And I
Mhm.
see us all as those beautiful healing channels, right? Like we're like the beacon, like the antenna,
Mhm.
and then all of that energy comes down through us into this planet, into this physical space and time. And that's just such a beautiful vision to have as we're doing it by ourselves in our home. I always envision like other people in the world doing it too, and that we're all, you know, adding our own frequency at the same time and then making this beautiful symphony together. And
Mhm.
it's just so cool to imagine. And again, being in person is just so amazing to share sound healing. And I just really, I've been doing small groups in the
Mhm.
studio because it's a big warehouse space. And it's just so nice to have people back together again.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be nice when that starts happening again. And actually, I think not next Friday, but the Friday after, I just made a connection with somebody local in town who, they saw one of my photos online,
In
made
Tacoma, Washington.
in Tacoma, yeah, made a comments because they knew one of the people in my photos, and I checked out their page and like, what? You're in Tacoma and you're doing sound baths and ecstatic dances? So like, whoa, okay, hold on, I need to talk to this person. So
Yeah.
they knew who I was already and were just stoked that I was even saying hi to them. And it's just like, yeah, please come DJ and come do a sound bath. And I'm just like, okay, this is the first thing I've done
So
in
cool.
almost a year. So this is gonna be fantastic. So I'm really excited to do that.
That's awesome. It's
Yeah.
also, as I'm imagining, I love working with the singing bowls, and it's also
Mhm.
not easy to travel with them. I've taken them on planes before, and it's not a comfortable experience for me because I have to pack them and
Mhm.
put them in cargo. And to
Mhm.
be able to bring tuning forks with me would be easy, right? I could put it in
Yeah.
my suitcase. I wouldn't have to worry about them breaking.
Yeah.
Obviously, you
Exactly.
don't want to drop them though, because that can affect their quality also,
Mhm.
couldn't it?
I would say as long as they're not dropped on hard surfaces, because
Okay.
they will pretty much break anything they come into contact with. Like
How heavy are they?
the biggest one's about 5 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've had someone drop one on my toe before, and
Ouch.
yeah, day one at a 5-day festival, someone drops one on my toe, and I'm wearing those toe shoes, so there was no protection. So
Oh,
I was hobbling around the whole entire time. Like, yeah, they're very durable. I when I play with them outside, I'll throw them into the air and flip them around and spin them to see how they sound. And of course, I don't always catch them, and yeah, some of them get pretty dinged up, but they hold a tune like perfectly still. The only time I've ever actually damaged one was the first few prototypes I was making. I didn't have a mallet, and I was like, well, there's this nice big tree outside that seems like it wants to help me make some noise, and I was hitting it against the tree and just smacking it against the trunk of it, and the thing was vibrating so intensely that it cracked some of the internal structure to it. So it still made a great sound, but it just had this little buzzing overtone, which was odd. But like, to the effect of that, the only way that I'm going to be able to damage these things is to really not take care of them. And
yeah.
traveling with them is great. And also, a big benefit to using them, I found, especially in sound baths, is because the bowls have such an amazing voice, but also they're fragile, and you don't want anyone touching your bowls usually. Because
Hmm.
I have friends with lots of alchemy bowls, and they get very nervous when anyone comes near them. But so with the tuning forks, I just hand them to people, so just create big circles. And one of the favorite things to do is form a big circle, hand everybody a tuning fork, and just sit in the middle of it and play all of them, and get my own sound bath while people are getting a sound bath as well. But it's just the hands-on experience and being able to feel the vibration, and take the
Yes.
pommel of it and just hold it to your chest or
Hmm.
forehead and work out. The best
How
is like
does that feel on your forehead? Like, is it just like a serious vibration, I imagine?
it puts it everything just all through the whole entire skull vibrates. and
Wow.
and also I'll I'll hold it to my ceiling so you can hear it. But if I hold them to structures like let's say I'm gonna hold this to my ceiling right here.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if that comes through.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, so it just makes structures just sing.
Wow. And the house is happy too.
For effect. So you can kind of see what I'm doing. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, so like it's great to have a space with wood floors, because while everyone's sitting with their own forks or even without them, I can just go and hold them to the ground, or have everyone hold them to the ground at once, and it just creates this huge vortex of
Yeah.
sound. And it's like in
Can you move closer to your microphone?
in
There you go.
acoustic. Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
But yeah, in acoustically sound places, they just harmonize so well. And having a lot of them going at once, or even just having a lot of them held to the body at once. So when I go to festivals, I I tend to go around with a group of people when we all get on matching outfits, usually all black with some Egyptian symbology etched all over our faces and everything like that, because I'm I'm a sucker for theater
Yes.
and showmanship. uh, there's got to be some sort of ceremony, some sort of presentation, and that's, it all works together. But we go around in groups and we just form circles around people, because of course at festivals people just be in their own space in another
Yes.
galaxy. or just sitting there meditating, and it's like, oh, look, there's someone right there who will appreciate this. And we just circle around them and do just a full sound bath around them. And by the time they open their eyes and realize what's happening, they're just completely blissed out. And we go, hold them to the front and the back of the head at the same time, to the chest and different parts of their bodies. And it's just so amazing to see people's reactions to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really nice gift to give too, because no one's expecting it. No one's expecting giant tuning forks to show up out of nowhere.
It's so magical. It's magical. Yeah.
Therefore, the magic.
I love placing instruments on people's bodies too. I really find that when you're playing in a room, it's just like talking here on Zoom. Like, it's nice to see your face, and it's different than being on the phone, right? And when you're in a room with a group and you're listening to the bowls, compared to when the bowl is placed on you and now you're experiencing the vibration, and you're feeling and listening and pulling all of that in and receiving, that the mind really is not able to focus on anything else except that sound and that moment in time, and really allows you to be quiet with yourself and to let go of all the things going on in your mind, like the laundry list of things to do, the limiting beliefs or thoughts you're having about yourself on a daily basis in the subconscious stream of thoughts, right? And then when that instrument touches you, all of that goes away. And it's an amazing reminder how easy it is for us, if with practice, that we can change those thoughts, or that we can take those thoughts and release them and allow ourselves to experience our being in a new and different way. Without all of that distraction or static.
Completely. Yeah, it's a very immediate and effective tool for just bringing people back into themselves and centering, and just all the noise just gets pushed out of the side. It's like giving someone an anchor an anchor that their attention grabs and focuses and harmonizes with. And it's very powerful. And I'll ask you, because you have experience being a practitioner, but do you find when you're playing bowls, or when you are the one playing, that you're very grounded and very present, and it's almost as if I find when I play them, if I'm holding them in my hands and doing work with them, I'm very grounded and do not feel the experience nearly as powerfully as someone who is on the receiving end of it. So I'll just be grounded and I'll be in my body. I'll have a mission with what I'm doing. I'll have a directive. But then the moment I give them away to somebody to play with on me, it's just same thing. Everything just goes out the window, and just like, oh yeah, this is what this is like.
Yes, I would fully agree with you. That is my experience. In some occasions, the energy of the group will be so open that you're the channel, and all that information is coming through, and you're playing accordingly. And sometimes when the group is super, super open, that channel is blown wide open as well, and there's no thoughts, and there's no distraction from anything. And at that point, like right now, as we're talking about it, I'm having a vision of when I experience this in a group session, and the top of my head is starting to buzz now and vibrate. And it's that moment where you're like, okay, cool, I'm totally in alignment with the universe. The groundedness is super important though, because that's what a lot of people in my experience that I found in yoga communities and festival communities, because there's so many drugs going around, to be in an even more altered state, that there's not a lot of groundedness, because they are in an altered state and they are just kind of floating in it, instead of remembering that they chose to be in this physical human body first. So when I am playing, I do appreciate that grounded feeling too, and know that even though I'm not feeling all the feels that those people are feeling, I came here to be a channel, and their intention was to be here to receive. So we're both receiving, just with different intentions.
Yeah, it's almost more of being the channel, and being a conduit for it is
correct.
Its own thing. But
different jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Just need to find people to trade with every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And any time you would like to do something over Zoom, just let me know. Yeah. Because I am finding, I just actually, before we met today, I had a it was called Lunch and Learn with Juniper Networks. Is a big high-tech company here in Sunnyvale. And I used to work with one of their VPs like 20 years ago at 3Com when I was working in high tech. And I had reached out to him probably about a year ago now and said, hey, I really would like to come in and offer my services there. Is there some way that we could set up a group session? Do you think your team would be interested in this? And this was before COVID happened. And then COVID happened. And then I was like, well, we could still do this virtually. We could totally set this up. I've got all this equipment now. And then things just kind of got crazy. And today, almost a year later, it finally happened at 12 o'clock. So I was like, wow, this is super cool. And so during the session, this are a bunch of people who work in high tech, many of them engineers or working in health and safety. Their job is health and safety, and most of them don't really take care of themselves. This is just from my own experience working in high tech. We're all at work Monday through Friday. We're weekend warriors on the weekends. We've got, most people have kids and they've got other responsibilities. And then at the end of the day, like, where's the time for you? And right now, we don't really have any space for ourselves at the moment, right? People are stuck in their house, most of them with their kids, right? So the kids are homeschooling, the parents are working, even our pets, like one of the ladies on the call, I was just talking about, sometimes people's cats get on top of the screen, get on top of the computer and, get in front of the screen. And right when I was saying it, her cat jumped on her computer and its butt was in the screen. And I was so like, funny. This is so hilarious. And it was just so cool to share. And then a couple of them were able to share what they were feeling at the end and how they were experiencing it and saying, at first it felt that I was just kind of in the sound. And then I felt like I was kind of floating like a jellyfish in the ocean was one of the comments I got. And I was like, yeah, it's to experience you in a new and different way, and to receive sound in a different way, and to listen. Like, how often do we really pay attention when we're listening? That's a really, good question to ask ourselves. And when we are listening, like, what are the thoughts coming through as we're listening? And how do those thoughts feel in our head as we are experiencing them in our body?
Yeah, very much so. I agree with that. Because a lot of times we don't listen. We think we're listening to things, but how much of what we're listening to is being replaced by just a never-ending torrent of consciousness that a lot of us don't even know it's happening.
Exactly.
Most people, if they're not tuned in, like, they aren't aware of their thoughts a lot of the times. It's just noise. It's just distraction. I mean, I have a lot of trouble with that because I have severe ADD sometimes. I'll be watching something or talking to people, and it takes so much effort just to like breathe and just be able to hold eye contact while my head's just like, blah, 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 blah. Like, let's try to break the secrets of the universe while we're having a 5-minute conversation with somebody. It's like an hour-long dialogue in my head in like a 5-minute space of time when I'm talking to people sometimes.
Is that something that you're experiencing too right now? That's very interesting. For me, I'm experiencing no time. Like, we experience time in this physical space, and at the same time, I don't feel like it exists. Like, I'm experiencing it in a new and different way. Like, there's days where it feels like it flies by, and yet I feel like it was 5 minutes. And then there's times where it's like a whole week. And I'm like, wow, was that like a day? Or like, how did that happen? And how did I get here?
Yeah, I'd say this whole last year has been like that. I've definitely had correspondences with people where I was just like, well, I spoke to them about a week ago, right? And then look at my phone and my contacts, and it's been a month and a half, and just like, whoa, like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely time has been a weird, fluctuating, just doesn't have, especially being inside so much, it feels it doesn't have as much sway over things. There's just very loose. It'll either disappear or it will just be there forever. Like, I don't know how long we've been on this call right now because of this, but I have so much time because I have nothing going on really, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, it's
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm because I've experienced it before, this quote lockdown, and it's just this very interesting feeling sometimes where you just are in the middle, even like if you're meditating or you're working with your tuning forks, or you're receiving, there you go into this other time space dimension, or this feeling with, within you, and you're accessing other parts of your brain that you're not usually accessing, and then you start firing and wiring into different places, and then you start to have different awarenesses of yourself. And if the majority of the planet is not doing that, that makes it really hard to have conversations with people sometimes, because you're really in a totally different mind space than they are. It's not better or worse. It's not good or bad. It's just simply where each person is at. And I find that I'm challenged to have conversations with people sometimes, because I want to talk about really cool shit, like large tuning forks and gongs and singing bowls. And they're like, I don't know what planet are you from? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, here, just let me show you and experience it for yourself. And then you will have a willingness, or you'll have some consideration is into how it might be able to support you, or what it is for you.
Mhm. But don't you want to talk about the news maybe, or some current events? Let's talk
I
about some
haven't
current
owned a
events here.
TV in 15 years. I'm like,
Oh, that's
killing
great.
me.
That's wonderful. I have a TV, but I don't have cable because, if I want to pirate something, or if I want to watch something, I just pirate it, because everything is free. Everything is
Exactly.
free on the internet if you know where to look for it. Like,
Exactly.
yeah. So I do my best I do my best to stay away from all news and most media that is going to interrupt whatever I'm doing with a commercial to try to sell me something. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is interesting. And then 7 minutes of content fired with, 5 more minutes of stimulation that's meant to make you feel completely self-conscious and out of place. And just, it's like it's like a method of psychological priming. It's like you
It
bombard
is.
people with stimulation and then put in a subtle message, and then that way it sticks a little bit better. So it's just, I think it fragments people's ability to pay attention to things, because it turns the attention span into something which, rather than being able to hold attention for a long time, it needs to process new ideas and concepts within short chunks of time, I feel. So it's like, I think it's definitely had an impact, especially within my generation, just because everyone I know cannot pay attention at all.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I totally agree.
yeah.
And it's different, like watching all of the different generations and how each is moving through this experience together. How some people who are in their 90s, who were open when they were 10, and they're still open in their 90s, right? They're just very open to whatever's coming at them, and they are fluid in the experience and they move with it. And, some people in their 90s that are just, like, I'm checking out of here. Like, I'm done with this place. This place has gotten crazy, right?
Mhm.
And even people in their 40s and 50s. And
Mhm.
then kids, right? Like kids, like to go through this. I couldn't even imagine being a 10-year-old and having to stay at home with my parents all day long. Like that would suck,
That'd be
you know?
terrible. Right. Or
That would not interest me.
being a parent like, damn it, I have to stay at home with my 10-year-old all day now. Oh boy.
Yeah, like most people that work in like a corporation, or they go to their job and they have kids, like sometimes that's their actual reprieve. Like that's their place of sanctuary, to go to their office, because they don't have a 5-year-old asking them for something every 5 minutes, right?
Mhm.
Or, the cat's not jumping on your computer while you're trying to work, or you're on a Zoom call, right? Like these are things that are minor, can be minor distractions, and they can also be very taxing on our body, on our mind, on our psyche. And, again, coming back to, where's the time and space for you? Where is the self-care time? Where's the self-love time? And if you're not making that time, like how are you going to survive? How are you going to thrive?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's one thing that's kind of a positive thing with what's been happening right now, is a lot of people have been given the time to focus on themselves and figure out, well, suddenly if you go from 40 plus hours a week of constantly being busy, and then you suddenly are thrust back into yourself, you have nothing to do but reflect and figure out what is actually affecting you and keeping you happy, and what you are trying to do to propagate that. And I mean, this has definitely been something I've seen with a lot of my friends. It's been for a lot of people that I know, for even my girlfriend, she didn't have work for about 3 months in the beginning of this, and it was great because she had so much time to herself. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, there's so much time to do. How do I fill this time? Normally, my hobbies only go so far, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
and but also even for like a lot of my friends, and like say my cousin is now doing all telecom. Like he just has to telecommunicate, Zoom calls to work. Everything is from his house, and he's absolutely loving this because he's like, "What? I don't have to leave my house now. I can just, the social element is gone, but he can just stay at home and manage the people he needs to manage from afar, and everyone's getting more things done. And it's turning out to be more productivity is actually happening because people don't have then the blocks of time devoted to having to drive to a building and be stuck in traffic,
Yeah.
which is just this very bizarre, almost like legacy tradition of how work needs to be done, when in actuality almost everything can be done from the comfort of your own home with a cat
Exactly.
butt in front of the screen and everything like that, for those who
Yeah.
want to, or for those
Yeah.
who are fortunate enough to.
I feel that it should be an option for sure. If people want to be in the office, let them be in the office. And also, being flexible with schedules instead of this, it has to be 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, whatever it is, because it's not really necessary. And maybe people's productivity time is different hours of the day. So like some people are more productive from, 7 a.m. until 12 p.m. And then some are more productive from like 1 p.m. until 7 p.m. So why don't you let people choose the time that works best for them and allow them to be productive in the time that feels best for their self instead of forcing that time on them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So how do people find you? Where can you be found on Instagram, your website, and tell us how to find you, and if you have any possible outdoor things happening for small groups.
Hmm. Let's see how to find me. So my Instagram, which is, at earth_tuned, is probably the best way to see up-to-date media and content and get a hold of me for, practically an immediate response, because I, like most millennials, am a slave to my social media account at this point. Like my whole entire job right now is to tend my social media account, since I'm not doing 90% of the stuff I can do. So that's the
Yeah.
best way. Email is good as well, because I'm in front of a screen all the time, like I had just said. So email, social media, my website, tunedearth.com. That's just there's a gallery there for the people who aren't on social media. There's a gallery. That's where you can buy the tuning forks as well. Though, of course, on there's not always the exact list of products. So I always encourage people to reach out to me directly, just because it's always good to have a dialogue. There's a lot of questions, and it's I'd like to have a personal relationship with a lot of the people that my work goes to, just because
Yeah.
these are very important to me, and they're very important to the people who receive them. So it's not like they're being manufactured by an unknown agent somewhere off in the world. It's pretty much myself and my fabrication partner who does
Yeah.
most of the work, since I can't use those machines unless I unless I work at a place with those machines. I
Yeah.
don't even know why they let me touch them in the first place when I was working at my friend's shop. Like usually I have to have a degree for that. But
Because the universe said this is where Joshua is supposed to be.
yes, exactly. The universe did me a solid. And
Yes.
just, oh, you don't know what you want to do? All right, you will not lose interest in this. Here you go, human. You have got some work to do. Once you're done doing the work with these, you'll do the work for us. I'm just like, I agree with
Love
that.
it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been such a pleasure connecting with you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today and sharing your magic with me and with the rest of the world.
Definitely. Yeah.